Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Collecting Comics, the show where we talk about comics and how to collect them. My name's Sean, and I'm here with my co-host, Cody. How's it going, Cody?
It's going great, Sean. How are you doing?
Doing well. So Cody's going to be my co-host for the foreseeable future. Cody, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you collect?
Oh, man. I collect a wide variety of things. Comics, first and foremost, my instant love. I do a lot of Doctor Strange, a lot of Doom. I do some more obscure comics too. I do like IDW. Whoa, man, the Sandman, the comics that came out there. Mm-hmm. So just kind of a wide variety of things.
So not many people read Fantastic Four right now. I mean, they just kind of came back into the fold.
Yes.
So, but they were so pivotal. They were so pivotal in the 90s or early 2000s with some of the stuff with like. Just before Secret Empire or Secret Wars.
Yes.
And then even in New Avengers and Avengers right before that. So what would you say is your most prized possession in collecting?
I got a comic signed by Stan the Man Lee with my favorite hero, Doctor Strange. And I think collectors take one of two routes when they're collecting comics. They either take the comic that means the most to them or something that graphically looks cool, like cover art wise. And that's kind of what I chose. I wanted something that really showed off the character. You get the cape, that classic like 90s cheetah print on there, but it also has this like holographic ring around it. And I got Stan to sign. Whoa, it's hard to say. But that's, you know.
So what con was that?
That was it's like 5 or 6 years ago. Spokane in Washington, where I live, we had our first Spokane Con outside of like Lilac City or that kind of thing. So they got Stan to go there. They got a bunch of the cast from like original cartoons. So Samurai Jack was there. I want to say the guy who was Emperor Pilaf from Dragon Ball. William Shatner was there. This is pretty big people.
Mm-hmm. So my first con was I think it was about 2013, 2014, here in San Antonio, Alamo City Comic Con. And it was my first experience there. I was actually working it there for the comic book store I work for every now and then. And they gave us breaks here and there. And so I started wandering, but I knew John Berthal was coming. And a while back we had at the comic book shop, we had I think it's Mike Choi. He was an artist who did a Tim Duncan cover with the Punisher in the background. So you got Tim Duncan holding the keys like this, handing it to the Punisher, and you got the car in the background. And the cool thing about that was that Tim Duncan actually created the car from his Blackjack speed shop, and we got people to come out and check it out. And then eventually it got auctioned off for charity. But he actually signed 40 copies of those variants. And I made sure I ended up getting one. I didn't get Tim Duncan to sign it, but I did get Mike Choi to sign it. And when I went to that con, they had John Berthal there. He was officially Punisher. And I was like, you know what? I need him to sign this comic. So the only signature I'm missing right now is Tim Duncan. So I don't know if I'll ever get to meet him or what, or, you know, I hear sometimes he's kind of wanting to be personal. Yeah. Which is fair. You know, I wouldn't want a whole bunch of people coming up to me either. But that was like my favorite comic cover variant for the longest time. Yes. And it's actually a really good segue for what we're going to talk about today is variants. But before we get to talking about the variants, first, we'd like to thank Waldo's Scrapyard for sponsoring this episode of Collecting Comics.
Yes.
And you said you've never used them, right? But you had some ideas for some stuff that you're wanting to get done with them?
I have not. I know that they do like 3D printed parts, like some really beautiful sculpts that Collecting Weekly has showed off multiple times through the main channel with Zach. But there's some custom heads I would really love to have like made. I'm a big Metal Gear Solid fan, and Hot Toys only made one Metal Gear Solid technically toy, and it was Naked Snake. And I would really love to have like a Metal Gear Solid 1 kind of like polygoned Snake to just have in my collection, which regrettably is not behind me today, unfortunately. I'm sure we'll see it. So I would love to have something like that done.
I'm just now getting into hot toys. My first hot toy was the life-size baby Groot from the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And back then, I didn't really know what hot toys was, but all I knew was I wanted that baby Groot because baby Groot was one of my favorite characters. And so I was able to get that. And then earlier this year, I was able to get the Unleashed version of Ironman from Zach. So he posted that. I was like, man, I really want an Ironman a hot toy. And that's when I was kind of making my decisions because I was collecting Legends at the time. And I ended up starting to sell a lot of them. And then that popped up and I had to jump on it. And so that was my first Iron Man hot toy. So, but now, man, I got so much on pre-order. I got the Thanos from Endgame on layaway right now. So I'm paying that off. In October, I should be getting, you know what else is, hopefully this month, I'll be getting the Hawkeye Ronin Deluxe. I'm excited for that one. A lot of people aren't too excited about that, but I know Ronin didn't really have a huge part, but I still liked what little bit he did do. And then I thought I liked how he came back in the final battle and was kind of doing his thing that way. But also the Iron Patriot, and then a Thanos statue coming, and then next year I got the battle damage Thanos and the battle damage, or the battle damage Thanos and the battle damage Iron Man coming next year. And in between there, who knows what I'm getting? Watching a Sideshows Con, I'm like, man, there's so much more stuff I want to get.
The cable they just put out, I had the Toy Zero cable, and I was like, it looks really good. And then I saw the Hot Toys cable, and I was like, people are talking about the face and lower jaw. I don't even care. It looks so good. I mean, heads are one of the best things that you can replace on anything. Wattos, hey, go print your own, paint it, but it looks so good.
Okay, but today we're here to talk about variants. So with variants, a lot of times you want to be really careful because you can find yourself down a rabbit hole really, really quick. From my experience of working at a comic book store, people have a hard time identifying what variants are, or if it's a second printing, if it's a blank cover, or even a retailer exclusives. They wonder why some of these comic book covers are so expensive now. Well, we'll get into that in a little bit, but when it comes to variants, I would say just be careful. You want to pick something that you actually like. I wouldn't pick up a variant just to pick it up. I found myself almost doing that, where I would get the main cover and the variant, and now you got doubles. So what would you say the variant is?
Normally the variant is just a different perspective on art, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I was the kind of guy that would walk into the comic book shop and I'd be reading a series, and I would just grab the one that was most aesthetically pleasing to me if there was a variant cover. Collecting is kind of one of those fickle things to where if you know what you're looking for and you're looking for those exclusive runs to where a comic book shop only has 10, 20, 30, 50 or whatever, those guys are always in there first day when those comics hit the shelf, and they're like, hey, I'll buy this, and this. And then you get there and you're like, oh man, I don't know. But I always just kind of rule of thumb, if I was buying a variant, it was just for myself usually.
And typically that's what you should do, because I mean, in the example of even like Marvel, they put out so many variants, and people think like, hey, this is going to be worth a lot of money later. Well, maybe not. I mean, it depends on what you're buying. I mean, if you're just picking up the cover price variant, every now and then you could see it boost up $10, $15, $20. If it's a really popular one, then you might see it go up to 50, 100, but it's only short. It's pretty short lived. Like those come down pretty quickly unless it's like a retailer exclusive.
I think the other thing too, with the Marvel movies that have happened over the last 10, 15 years, the uptrend in comics too has been like whose characters' movies coming out, Black Panther, Thor, that kind of thing, right? So that always sparks new interest. Oh, hey, I want to sign this or sign that, or
the speculators. Yeah. There was a guy who'd come into the shop, and he's a huge celebrity fan, and he would come in and he would pick up all of the the celebrity covers, I guess. So like Star Wars is a good example. Marvel Star Wars came out with their celebrity covers of like Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker from different scenes in the movies, and he'd just pick them all up and they'd go get them all signed and graded. And that's kind of what he did. But there are just those collectors who will pick up the comic book for the cover, or because they just appreciate the art that much or the artist that much.
Totally.
I think one of the big artists out there right now is Art Germ, and a lot of people like to flock to his stuff, and it's just crazy what he can do.
Yes, mine. Some of my favorite covers. I think John Romita Jr. does a great job of covers, kind of in the past. Frank Miller's big, like dark, gritty colors. Some of my favorite.
Yeah, I definitely gravitate towards Alex Ross a lot because I like his take. I like his take on how he can make classic looking characters from like back in the 70s and 80s look so lifelike, and they're in their original costumes and stuff. And I really like a lot of his work, but his stuff just gets so expensive. For a while there, I was getting the Immortal Hulk issues, and I was so happy that he was the artist on that. And I was like, hey, these are cover price. But so those are some of the examples. So you got cover price, you got retailer exclusives, and all of those get broken down into ratios on how many each comic book store gets. And then you got blank covers, virgin covers, which we won't have an example of that, but I can describe it really quick. So a virgin cover would be like a main cover of a comic book, but take away the barcode, take away the title and all the other markings with the wording and stuff. And that's like a virgin, that's what they call a virgin cover. And then you got second printings. And today, you want to say something?
Oh yeah, sorry. I was gonna say the virgin cover is more of like a proof art in some ways, right?
Almost. Yeah, like a litho almost.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about second printings and how those could be variants and how they're different and stuff like that. So the first example that we have is this. So this is a Secret Empire issue number 6, and we have the cover price variant next to it. I really enjoyed this series, but I also really enjoyed their cover art for the variants, because the whole premise behind the story was that Hydra was kind of sneaking in and turning some of the heroes to their side. And we'll go over that a little bit more later, because that's one of the books we're going to talk about. But this particular issue of issue number 6 is actually almost like a silhouette of Star-Lord, and he has the Hydra symbol on his chest, and it's kind of gritty and looks pretty dark. But what they do a lot now is they'll mark variant on their books, and but sometimes you run into some variants that you don't really have that option of seeing if it's a variant or not. So there's some different ways you have to figure it out. So the first thing we're going to go over is the barcode. That's probably the easiest way you could figure out if it's a variant. So if you could see the barcode here, it says 0061 on the top, right? And then it has one other number to the right-hand side. That number I can't really identify too often. Sometimes it identifies a second printing, but not all the time. And the easiest way you could identify this is like this. So the first 3 numbers are going to be the issue number. So in our case, 006 is issue number 6 of this Secret Empire book. Then you move over to that 4th number. That 4th number will tell you if it's a variant or not. So if you can see that the barcode on the top, it's actually as a 1, that identifies it as a main cover. So if you see that 1 there, that's a main cover. Anything past that, a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that will indicate what variant it is. And in the example of like an indie book, they have multiple variants. They'll have that one cover price, but then they'll also commission other artists to do multiple variants to give you an option. So, I mean, they've gone up all the way to 9s, 10s sometimes. And there's just different ways to identify it that way. But in our case here, it says 001. So that's the main cover. But on the second barcode, it says 0064. So this is the 4th cover in the line of variants for this series. And that's probably the easiest way you could figure out if it's a variant, because that 4th number is always going to be a 1 if it's the main cover. Anything past that is a variant. And so that's one easy way of determining whether it's a variant or not. Have you ever used the barcode like that before? Or?
I knew that it was a thing, but I didn't really know how to identify it.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is if you're confused about it, you can always ask your local comic book shop owner. They're obviously going to know the ins and outs of that. How do you know which cover art to buy if you're collecting, Sean? What are some things to look for besides just the artist and covers? But like in that example, so there maybe is at least 4 of that cover for the Secret Empires. Mm-hmm. Which character do you choose, or how do you pick the background art for collecting?
For me, it was completely by if I liked the art. If I didn't like the art, and I would suggest this to anybody, if you don't like the art, don't buy it. Don't buy it. Just go with the main cover. For me personally, I'd rather have the main cover of a book than a variant. The only time where I don't mind buying a variant is if I need a double of that book as a placeholder in my overall collection. So I have quite a few CGC books, and if I could help it, I'll find a second copy of it. And if I can't, I'll buy a variant of it or a second printing of it, just so that the continuity of the numbering is the same in the box. So, yeah. So an example for that was Thanos number 13, the first appearance of Cosmic Ghost Rider. I got that graded, and there was a missing spot in that series because I got it graded. Can't put my CGC books with that. So I eventually ended up buying a second printing of it, and that's like my placeholder to be able to make sure that I have every single issue in continuity. And that's my little nitpick. Other than that, I mean, if you like the artist, if there's some comic book collectors out there who would much rather just collect the art, so buying the book is kind of a bonus, but really they just kind of display the art. And that's where you get collectors who go into like lithographs, or even what we were just talking about with like statues and hot toys. You know, they'll go that route because they appreciate the art more than just rather reading the book.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is retailer exclusives. So we have 2 copies of Tony Stark Iron Man number 1 here, and your cover price would be the one that's just on the shelf sitting there for whatever it's worth. I think this one's like $4.99, $5.99, something like that. But retailers will get incentives for the number of books that they buy from Diamond. Diamond is probably the main supplier of comic books for comic book stores. DC actually just kind of went away from that. I can't remember do you remember what company they went to? Did you know?
Ooh, I know they're
I think they was like Midtown. They might have. I think they might have gone to Midtown. I'm not sure, but Diamond will give them an incentive, and this is what that book is. So you see this Tony Stark Iron Man number 1 is a completely different cover than the one that's on the screen, but this one is actually done by Alex Ross, and we were talking a little bit about artists and the variants, and this is why I love Alex Ross, because this is the classic Iron Man for me. Iron Man's my favorite character, and the fact that I could see him zooming through like that, it was just that much more incentive for me to buy this. So in the case of this Iron Man number 1, that's why I bought it. It was because it was 1, Alex Ross, and 2, is a classic style Iron Man. But so what comic book stores will do is, or what Diamond will tell them to do is, if you buy so many of these books, we'll give you 1 to every 10. And in this case, for every 10 issues of Tony Stark Iron Man that you buy, you'll get a retailer exclusive variant. And it's done by a different artist. And as you buy more issues, you get a better variant. So this Tony Stark Iron Man is a 1 in 50. Okay. And what that means is for every 50 books of the original copy that they buy, they will get 1 copy of this Alex Ross Iron Man, Tony Stark Iron Man issue. And this is where a lot of collectors get in trouble too, because they're like, oh, this issue's coming out, and I want this one, and I want that one, and that one, and that one. And then before they know it, they have over $100 worth of variants in their boxes. And for some people, that could be a real issue.
Yes. I have a question, because it's something I actually don't know. Do they release ahead of time what the variant covers are going to be to the public, or is that something you find in shop?
So like you said before, your comic book associate worker at the shop is your best resource. Don't be afraid to talk to them. They could show you, they could actually pull up the website and show you which variants are coming out and how they get priced and things like that. It varies. It typically varies from shop to shop, but a lot of times with the retailer exclusives, they're already kind of set prices. But an option that you do have is previews. So DC, Marvel each come out with their own preview every now and then. Marvel more so, they come out about monthly. And there's a bigger book released by Diamond called the Previews book. And it's like a thick encyclopedia of toys, figures, statues, accessories, little knickknacks, and then comics that are coming out. And they'll list these books in there. So typically that's about 2 months in advance that you have to figure it out before it drops. But then there's also numerous resources online. So if you follow a certain artist, they might drop it. There's other websites that will feature these books when they get announced. So really it's a matter of Googling and then also just going to your comic book store, see if they have that Marvel preview or the previews book and kind of flipping through there. And the great thing is, at least at the shop that I work at, you can talk to us about it, say, hey, I want this book. Okay. So then you would pre-order it. And then when it comes out, we'll make sure we reserve that copy for you.
So can you reserve, can you reserve the 1 to 100 issue or the 1 to 50 issue, just depending on the stock that they're ordering? Or is that like a first serve?
It's both. It's definitely a first come, first serve, but it really depends on if your shop orders that many issues. So I go to a shop up in San Marcos called Comic Relief. And it's a mom and pop shop. It's super small. You walk in there, you could see the back wall when you open the door. They don't have the space to order 100 copies of this number one or the clientele to be able to sell enough of those to get that 1 in 100. In the case of where I work at Heroes and Fantasies, we have lots of subscribers, and we were able to order that many because of how many people that we have coming into the shop every day. And it just kind of really depends. You got to pick and choose, because you don't want to order too much of a book that doesn't sell that much, and then you kind of lose out on the variant there. But it really just depends on the stock and how much each shop orders. Like, each shop is going to be different.
Gotcha.
But yeah, this is actually, if I ever go and see Alex Ross, that's going to be the book I get signed for sure. Another example of a variant are blank covers. So the cool thing about blank covers is, a lot of people will just collect them, but you take it to an artist and you work out whatever the deal is and what you want on the cover, and they'll draw it for you. So this one was actually done by a friend of mine, Rocky Wedrock, and I just kind of had this funny idea of a Deadpool in an Ironman suit, just kind of trolling Tony a little bit, and that's what we came up with. As you start running into well-known artists, they'll start charging more and more and more and more, and some will only do maybe like a bust shot or a headshot of a character for a certain price point. But he was an up and coming artist, and he's a friend of mine, and I helped him out, and he helped me out with this. But these blank covers are cool too, because if you're into drawing yourself, or if you're into trying to be an artist, this is your shot at putting your name on that. The tricky part though is, do you get it graded? And the tricky part on that is, you have to have a CGC witness person there to do that. This would be a great way for, if I would have gotten this graded, it would have been a great way to get his name into the system. But I chose not to in this case. But and for some artists, they'll be, oh, you're going to get this graded. Well, okay, well, it's going to be another $10. It just kind of depends on who you run into and who you want to do your art. But do you have any blank covers that you had an artist do anything on?
I do not. I was gonna say, we at my comic book shop, the same guy owns like the core 3 in Spokane, because Spokane's big, but it's not super big. So he has one in each of the different parts of the city. And at the main shop that mostly sells comics or like older, struggling for words today, graphic novels.
Mm-hmm.
He has like a bunch of the blank comics kind of behind the counter. And they're kind of, who did the art for it, and it's kind of like labeled and stuff. So I've definitely seen it, but I don't personally own one yet.
Yeah, I own a few, but the hard part is, when can you get to a con? How do you run into these artists? Sometimes, obviously not this year because of the pandemic, but during Free Comic Book Day, you get a lot of local artists that will show up to your shops and stuff, and they'll do great deals on art for you. But the next type of variant we're actually going to talk about are second printings. So a second printing is basically just a reproduction of the original main cover, and there's just little nuances in there that might change. So in this case, we have Legendary Star-Lord, and it's part of the Black Vortex storyline, which is a really great storyline, and it set up a lot of stuff for the Guardians of the Galaxy, especially Gamora. In the last probably like 5-6 years, she gets this extra cosmic power because of the Black Vortex. And basically what that does is you look into it and it'll show you your best self. And Gamora went ahead and looked into it, and she became her best self, and she became even more dangerous than she already is. The issue for her though was that it started draining over the years and stuff, and then she came back to be regular Gamora. And ever since she lost that power, she's a little bit off. And then that's kind of where you run into the storyline for what was it? The one where they're going, Infinity Wars, I think it was called, right? Infinity Wars. And that's where she goes a little bit crazy, and some other crazy stuff happened. But so on this particular issue of Legendary Star-Lord, what producers will do, or the production companies will do, is they'll notice that, hey, these comic book stores are trying to order more of these issues, and they really want another copy of this so they can kind of continue selling it. Not everybody was able to get it. Sometimes you get books that are short printed, and they'll come out with a second printing. But a good way of identifying a second print is going in, just looking at the cover. Sometimes it will say second print, and in the case of this book, it says second printing just below the number. And again, you could reference you could reference the barcode. And this one's a little bit different. So this one says 00912. So that fourth number is also a 1. And I know what I said before was that, that 1 means that it's a main cover. But I think in this case, that last number, the 2, represents a second printing. It's not always like that. I wouldn't bank on that, but you kind of got to just follow stuff.
Okay. And they changed the color a little bit, kind of the color palette on the top, it looks like, from blue to green.
Right. And that's kind of how they differentiate it. If it was like a main cover, a second printing, or a different variant. But what they've done recently for second printings is they'll just get a whole new artist on it, and they'll just do a brand new cover, and it just becomes a second printing variant. Or what they'll do is they'll take this same picture of Star-Lord pointing his gun at Kitty Pryde there, and they might just change the color of his jacket or the color of the background to a black and white cover or something like that. But in this case, asking your comic book associate would be the best thing to do to determine whether it is. I hate when I don't pay attention. I buy a second printing.
Now, let me ask you this: is there an instance where the second printing becomes more valuable than the original printing, or have you ever seen that?
Yes. A really great example of that, and it's very relevant right now because of the Venom movies that are being announced, is the second printing of the first appearance of Carnage. And all they did to that is instead of your white background that it has, they made it silver. And in certain instances, those variants or those second printings are worth even more than their main covers. And that's where it gets tricky too with buying variants and things like that. Because if you're into it for the flipping, a lot of times you don't end up on top on that.
Mm-hmm. That's why we have the bins that you can go through when you get there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Secondary bins for things that don't sell, or not necessarily don't sell, but that are less desirable. Cover art.
Yeah, those dollar bins really come in handy with filling in collections every now and then and stuff. And then you run into like an oddity. You find one of those old 90s books or old 80s books that are kind of like, hey, this is a really cool cover,
Yeah.
But at this time, we would like to again thank our sponsors over at Waldo's Scrapyard. Waldo's Scrapyard is sponsoring this episode of Collecting Comics. You can find them on Instagram at Waldo's Scrapyard and on Facebook and eBay as well. They make 3D printed parts for hard to come by Kenner and Hasbro vehicles, as well as resin printed head sculpts of dozens of different characters in the Star Wars universe. If you don't see a character you like on their Instagram, send them a message and they can get it designed and printed for a reasonable fee.
Yes, they can.
And that's probably, man, I'm not looking forward going down that rabbit hole of, you know what, I need this head sculpt for this character. Or I need, like, my wife would kill me.
It's a steep slope, especially when you start getting into customs. Because that's kind of where I'm at with my collection. Is that like if there's a core figure I want, but there's like one or two things I want to change on it, I'm gonna buy a custom head or like a custom cape or something. They normally are super expensive, but what I've seen from Watto's is that they're decently priced versus that like, oh, hey, I bought this from some other design company. It's like $300, but it's this super rare, really good sculpt. It just it kind of just depends.
Yeah, it's hard enough for me right now to go ahead and just convince her to, hey, let me get this hot toy. It's only $350.
It's funny because the memes that you see on Facebook or the other groups that are so true of like, hey, I bought this. Did you tell your wife? Not yet.
It's funny seeing some of these people on like the sideshow sites, and they're like, I just went through all of my pre-orders that I have coming within the next 3 months. why do I do this to myself? My wife is going to kill me.
Yep. Oh.
But for the longest time, that's kind of what it was for me with the comics too. I'd be like, hey, can I get this really expensive comic book? She's like, can you wait till next month? I'm like, it's kind of a time sensitive thing. If I wait, it's going to be gone.
That's the biggest thing I've noticed. The collecting market for toys has really started the upswing, and I don't know if it's due to like resale on secondary market, because it seems like any Hot Toys that launch just starts going up in price for the most part. But all the toys, if you miss out on it, they, especially like name brand Hot Toys, it's more expensive to buy it later.
Well, and when I was originally searching out Hot Toys and kind of figuring out what I like and like what I wanted to do with it, I always ran into the Mark 46 Iron Man from Civil War, and I was like, that was the coolest Iron Man I've ever seen up until the Mark 85 came out, and then I kind of switched. But seeing that Mark 46 in Hot Toy form was crazy for me. And one of my favorite scenes from the movies and comic books is that issue number 6 of Civil War, where Iron Man and Cap are fighting and he's shooting the beam at him. Yeah, exactly. And then when they recreated that in Captain America Civil War, I was like, oh my God.
Oh man.
So after I finish up my in-game stuff, that might be my next go.
Especially like you see the guys with the big glass cases, and they have like the diorama setups. So it's like Cap, the energy effects, second-hand energy effects you can buy. Looks so great.
And my whole reasoning behind going to Hot Toys was so I could have a statement piece. It's like 1 figure, 2 figures that will make a nice like diorama set and be like, what, that was a great part in that movie and I really appreciated it. The thing I ran into with the Legends was that they were all just kind of like standing there, like soldiers. I was like, well, I have like hundreds of them and now I can't really do much.
That's I bought a secondary base. Sorry, I was looking at my toys up here. A secondary base in my room for the Witcher, the Geralt figure that came out. The first one that kind of looks more accurate. But the Red Sonja had this base with like a dragon on it. It's got like all these rocks, and like you could buy them secondary market, and they were really cheap. So I bought one and I put it with my Geralt, and the amount of shelf presence that it brings alone is you just walk in the room and it's the first thing you see. And with the Witcher blowing up, it's like, oh, that's Geralt. Oh, that's cool. It's dragon. Yeah. It's really like talking points. So I can only imagine, especially when you get your Thanoses.
Yeah.
So big and they're so detailed. They're going to look great.
I have the Diamond Select Thanos statue where he's holding the cosmic cube like this and he's smiling. And then I checked out the Hot Toy in-game Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet and the interchangeable hand and stuff. And I was like, my God, this thing is just as big as that statue. I don't know if I'm going to have room.
Yes, there's some big toys. I had the second Hulk that came out with the longer pants, and it was just like I couldn't put it on my shelf because it was too big. I need like 18 or 16 inches to display it.
Is that the from Age of Ultron?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
I had almost the entire line at one point.
If I can pick up that Age of Ultron Hulk, that was one of my favorites. But then it's like you buy that one, and then you have to get the Hulkbuster, right? That's my reasoning.
Man, that's some of the bigger toys. Because I'm a Metal Gear fan. We've already talked about that. Yeah. But 3-0 made the Metal Gears are like giant robots in the game. So they made these like 1/25th scale, but they're like 24, 25 inches. And then they made both like Metal Gear Solid Ray and Metal Gear Rex. And I really want to buy both and make a coffee table out of it because just how solidly big they are.
So the last couple of things that you could figure out to a way to make sure that you have a main cover or variant, and DC did a really good job at this with their Rebirth line. They came out with 2 variants, or I'm sorry, they came out with a main cover and a variant, and then every now and then they would drop like a retailer exclusive. And that was one thing that I thought was really cool that DC did was like, we have cover A, we have cover B, and that's what indie books do too. They have A, B, C, D, E covers, and it's like pick one or the other, or get the retailer exclusive. I remember when I got into comics, Secret Wars. Yeah, Secret Wars was just dropping, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna dive into it hard. I'm going to get every title, but they had so many titles, so many variants that it would fill up entire first week walls, at comic book shops. They had, it was just insane that storyline. And then, so now I have a short box in the closet full of Secret Wars books that I don't even touch anymore. I'm like, well, what am I going to do with it?
That was the Age of Ultron that came out. They did a bunch of cover A, cover Bs for like almost every issue. So especially with the Galactus at the end, where they Ultron like kills him, and they get all the Galactus bots. There was like I remember seeing one where it's like, I'll see if I can find the photo. But yeah.
Okay. Another thing you could do though to identify a variant is ask your associate if it's in a bag and board if you could open it up, which I think that's where you kind of run into this in most cases is you don't know if it's a variant or a second printing when it's in the bag and board in the back issues, and just opening up that first page and looking at the credits, a lot of times it'll tell you if it's a second print or if it's a variant or what variant it is, A, B, C, D, do you have anything to say on variants or anything like that? I mean,
no, like I'll just piggyback off what I said earlier that it's the time when I buy variants is when I'm looking at the covers and I'm like, man, that one's cool. So, because for me, if I'm reading a series and then if I'm not gonna put it in my long box, it's just kind of something I'm reading. It's gonna go at some point. So I'd rather have a cool cover that maybe I could make a collage out of, or end up cutting out and like making like a Mod Podge, which some of the collectors out there are cringing right now. But
I almost fell down that rabbit hole of getting the connecting covers. And it just makes it look so nice. And that's another example too, where they'll come out with like a variant that you connect and make this big collage of something, and then they'll have another version of it that are virgin covers, which are the covers that we talked about where there's no words, there's no writing, it's just the picture. It's just the art. And typically those go for a lot more, but I was like, you know what? Stop.
Well, it makes me think of I don't know if you do manga at all, but normally on manga they have like, it says like number 1 and then it has a character's face and then it's kind of like, that's what it's about. And then by the time you get to 20, it's made like a collage or picture that kind of all intertwine. That's kind of what it makes me think of. But yeah.
What manga are you thinking of specifically?
I was thinking of Bleach because there's they kind of each turn, or like you'll see part of a sword in one person's thing. So when you have it on your shelf and you're looking at it, it's all cohesive and blends together. I think Naruto does it too.
Yep. Pokemon too. I think Pokemon did it. I think what's another one? I don't think Attack on Titan did it. But their side art looks really good. I do like how Dragon Ball just made it super simple, and they just kind of used the Dragon Balls to kind of to progress the books. Yeah. But if you want to buy a variant, you should really only do it under these circumstances. One, you like the artist, you follow the artist, then it makes a lot of sense. If it's your favorite artist and you have to have it, then of course, go for that variant edition. Just be careful when you get into those retailer exclusives, because those can put a dent in your wallet for sure. I think the next reason why you do that is just loving the art. If that cover art, in a lot of instances, that's what happens too, because even in like the DC stuff, the cover art on the variant was sometimes even better than the main cover. I think there's a few Batman issues. I think of Batman issue number 50, The Wedding, and it was a retailer exclusive, but it was a picture of Catwoman and I can't remember. I think it was Catwoman and Batman, or it was just Catwoman. But the rain was falling down, and they were kind of forehead to forehead. And the cool thing was, with the black and white version of it, just like the sketch cover version of it, you couldn't really tell if it was rain or if it was tears. Oh. So like you would see the teardrop, or you'd see the rain coming from the top, but then when it was hitting her face, she was kind of looking down, and you would just kind of see a couple of tears kind of coming down her eyes and stuff. But with the regular version of it, you could clearly tell it was rain. But I thought that was a really good example of, the symbolism of what was about to happen in that issue. Did you ever read the Batman series? That Batman series?
Not that one specifically, no. But I think I've seen the art that you're talking about. It sounds really familiar.
Yeah, I've said it in previous episodes. I'm basically 100% Marvel. I think there's less than 1% of my books that are indie DC, and that Batman storyline, not even really the detective storyline, but just that Batman storyline was one of the best book series that I ever read from that Rebirth line. Started out a little bit slow, but then by the time it hit issue like 15 through 20 to 30, they had the Button issues that came out, and then they eventually went into with the Watchmen and stuff like that. And I mean, it was just such a great read, and that would probably be the one DC book that I would plug.
I think mine, and I just Googled it here for those of you watching, because I want the artist, is the Kingdom Come from DC. It's an older book, but Alex Ross did the art for it. And he reimagined like all of the superheroes as a little older, and it's kind of like super gritty and like what's happened as these heroes have progressed towards their elder days. And the big thing that I think of is there's this shot of Green Lantern, and he's sitting on a throne in this like citadel that is made of all of his willpower energy, and he's just like staring at the earth as he like rotates around it. It's cool.
But yeah, so that's kind of our talk on variants today. So you use your comic book associates to help you figure out which comic is right for you. Use that barcode. Remember those first 3 numbers. And DC kind of broke the rules on this when they hit Detectives and Action Comics 1000. They added an extra number to it for the 1000. But those first 3 numbers, 009 in the case of the Legendary Star-Lord, that's the issue number. That middle number, that 4th number in the line of the barcode, it's this. And I should mention that it's the smaller barcode. So you get that main barcode that's always scanned, but it's that smaller barcode with the 4th number. Anything past 1, so you see a 2, a 3, a 4, that's going to be a variant. And the way to identify which variant it is how it falls in line. So number 2 is variant number 2, or it's really variant number 1, but it's like the second version of that book. 3, it's the next variant over, and it really doesn't matter. It just kind of your preference. If you'd rather take the variant number 3 over variant number 2 because you like the artwork better, then just do it. So now we're going to take some time, because one thing I really want to do on this podcast is help you figure out what books are right for you. And so what we'll do is we'll take a few minutes to talk about 2 of our favorite books that we like that might get you started into comics and a starting spot. My recommendation is typically to buy a trade paperback of a series and see if you like that series. On top of that, buying a series that has multiple characters. So in one of the first episodes, I talked about Age of Ultron and Civil War. You get a whole host of characters, and you kind of see how they interact with each other. Then you're like, you know what? I really like what happened here, so let me go check out this guy. So, Cody, I believe you're up. You're talking about Neil Gaiman's Sandman.
Yes, the first volume is called Preludes and Nocturne. It's a darker comic, made by association with DC and published by Vertigo. And Neil Gaiman, big fantasy author, He's done a lot of really good work. The audiobook just came out. There's a whole audio drama that launched on Audible, and they're making a Netflix series. So definitely the time to jump on board if you're big into those kind of things, or big occult things. And that's kind of where we're going to start off. Is it takes place as this cult is trying to summon death, so that they can trap death and make a deal with him. And they're like, hey, we're going to summon you. You're going to give us immortality so I can live forever. Come to find out, what they summon is actually Dream, who is our main antagonist. And each of the different Indolus, as they call them, are like aspects. So you have like destiny, death, I think greed, lust, and dream. So he ends up getting trapped and just kind of waiting. So it's about his life, and then it ties in a bunch of kind of the older DC comics. So you see like the original Sandman, he's got like a gas mask, and it's like the 50s, and he's like putting people to sleep with this gas mask on. You get to meet John Constantine as Dream kind of starts to regain his power after he breaks loose of his imprisonment. You go to hell, like a bunch of other different places. It's really cool and kind of super intense. So,
did you ever pick up the new Sandman storylines that came out of DC just recently? Or
I'm ashamed to say I have not. It's something that's on my list to get to. I watched a video online, I think Variant, one of the other YouTube channels that I used to watch, did a whole cover on it. So
nice. So I'm up with Guardians of the Galaxy, and I have to hand it to Guardians of the Galaxy, the movie. It really got me into the comic books. What I always say is Iron Man Iron Man, the first the 2008 movie, got me into the Marvel characters and the superheroes, because before then I was never, the closest thing I got to superheroes was Power Rangers back in the good old days. And from there I really never got into it until I saw Iron Man, and then I just fell in love with the character, and it really got me into the superheroes. But it wasn't until Guardians of the Galaxy came out where I was like, you know what? I think I might want to explore comic books. And just a little personal thing from me is I have dyslexia. I'm dyslexic, right? So reading was never my big thing, and I always had to figure out creative ways to read. So this was just another avenue for me to go down to keep me reading. And I picked up this Guardians of the Galaxy series probably about halfway through the series, and I had no idea what I was doing. I ended up learning that there was different Guardians of the Galaxy volumes and different characters that were original Guardians, and I really had to do a lot of research on it. But this is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and it follows Star-Lord at the beginning, and he has some daddy issues, and his dad comes back into the fold and stuff, and trying to train him to become king of Spartix after his dad is whenever his dad decides to move on. And this point one issue that we have here kind of goes into the story of Star-Lord and how he met how his dad met his mom, and how everything happened, and his ship crash landing. And then the cool thing about the first issue is I have a second version of it. It's the exact same book, but it's signed by Dave Bautista and Brian Michael Bendis. Nice. So my goal for this book here is to get all of the Guardians to sign it. It has Groot on the cover. It has Rocket, Gamora. It even has Iron Man on it. So that's also another reason I gravitated to it. And that was one of my favorite parts of the book, was just kind of the story where Iron Man runs into the Guardians of the Galaxy out in space. And this was, I think this was after he became director of S.H.I.E.L.D. He kind of became the villain again, and then he's kind of done with it, and he just leaves Earth. And that kind of segued me into getting the Avengers books and the other Iron Man books that happened within that timeline to figure out, well, how did he go to space? Why did he go to space and stuff? And the fun thing about this series, it runs about 25 issues, I think 24, 25 issues. And the fun thing about this book is there's so many crossovers. You get the trial of Jean Grey in there. Angela pops up. She used to be a Spawn character. Her first appearance is in Spawn issue number 8, I think. And because of what happens in Age of Ultron, with them going back and forth into time, they kind of start cracking the universe, if you will, and it pulls her in to the Marvel universe, and she kind of runs around there. But it crosses over into the Black Vortex, which we were talking about, how you look into the mirror and it shows you your best self. And it just kind of goes on and on and on. It has some really great storylines. Original Sin had a couple storylines in there. And that storyline was Star-Lord, Richard Rider Nova, and Thanos get thrown onto this deserted planet. And they keep killing Thanos, and he ends up in a different part of the. I'm pretty sure it was Thanos, but he keeps ending up in different parts of the planet. And then he's like, you know what? Then I'll just do it. And they're like, no. And then they kill Star-Lord, and Star-Lord comes back and stuff like that. And but I always recommend this volume 3 of Guardians of the Galaxy because it's what got me into comics.
Oh.
Yeah, so special place in my heart for that.
Masters of Doom. This is, dare I say, my favorite comic I've ever read. So I, as a kid, started reading Fantastic Four because I too am dyslexic, which I think is hilarious that we haven't talked about that, but I love it. Comics were like the big cure because it broke up all the dialogue and the lines. And it was easier to read. But Dr. Doom was always my favorite because in my mind, he's this misunderstood superhero who's trying to solve all of the world's problem by being a dictator. And you'll see through like different comics and iterations, like, yeah, he is kind of a bad guy sometimes. But when you look at Latveria, the country itself, he's like respected and loved. And there's this whole crossover with Doctor Strange where he's like looking around at all the people and like, oh, do they love him or do they fear him? And this little girl runs up and gives him roses. And Doctor Strange is using his mystic stuff to look at her. And he's like, these people actually adore this man. Like, he takes care of them. So Masters of Doom is about this huge just twist in general of, I kind of almost don't want to explain it because I don't want to destroy the illusion of the whole comic itself. But it's about Dr. Doom and how you feel like he's being manipulated the whole time, or is he the one manipulating? You know, how strong truly is he? How smart is he? How cunning? And at the end, you're left feeling this sense of awe as he walks away with essentially what is cosmic power and just kind of walks off back to his own world.
So around when did that release? Because it sounds a lot like Secret Wars, like the 2015 Secret Wars.
Let's take a look here. I have it pulled up on Amazon. Let me go back one.
I always just remember reading that Secret Wars being kind of like my introduction to the events and how just like everything was thrown into hell and Dr. Doom was kind of the manipulator and all of this. And it just sounds so much like that. So I'm kind of curious how it falls into continuity with everything else.
So it looks like it was published in 2009. So it's a little bit of an older comic. I don't know where it falls continuity-wise. That's something we'll probably have to look into here. But if you're looking for a trip of a comic, it's definitely one with a bunch of surprise twists and turns.
So the next book is mine, and it is Secret Empire. This storyline got so much hate when it released because it's about Hydra Cap, and there were so many people upset that that Captain America was made out to be a Hydra operative, and it made the book. So this book, I had to backtrack a little bit. So if you wanted the full story on this book, you have to go back like 2 miniseries. One was called Standoff, and it crossed different people's different characters' books, and it talked about this this little town called Pleasantville, I think it was called. And basically what they did is they transformed the villains. Instead of throwing them into the prisons, they transformed them and kind of manipulated their minds to being in a good old town where everybody's respectful and everybody's doing their thing for society and things like that. And this is where we kind of run into a character called Singularity, who made her debut in A-Force for Secret Wars. And she basically, actually, I'm sorry, I'm getting it mixed up. She's actually the carnation of the Cosmic Cube, is what it is. Okay. So you're in this city, and it's run by S.H.I.E.L.D., and it goes to hell, and you find out that Maria Hill's behind it, and all this stuff starts happening. Well, at the time, Captain America is Old Man Cap, right? So he's going in there, and he's trying to figure things out, and he gets caught up with Crossbones, and Crossbones just beating him up crazy, right? And the Cosmic Cube, she sees it happening, and then I think the next page just kind of goes blank, and you turn it, and then there's Captain America, all strong. He has a superhero serum again, but I think it was more like cosmic power. But we're not 100% sure at this time if he actually came out with just his real powers, or if this is a different Captain America. So that story goes on, and then it releases Steve Rogers' Captain America. And I think it was that first issue where at the very end, he goes, Hell Hydra. And everybody got so pissed. They were so upset that Marvel made Captain America a Hydra agent, right? And the storyline just keeps going and keeps going. And it basically ends up here at Secret Empire. So Hydra Cap took over with certain superheroes and certain villains and stuff, and kind of gave them their own worlds, like their own little regions to rule over. Mm-hmm. And he made deals with Ultron. He made deals with like Kingpin and stuff. And so Kingpin ends up taking over New York and puts this big dome over New York. And I think it was because of the power of the Scarlet Witch. And it just kind of goes on, and the heroes are super confused because there's a little in-game tease in there. Also kinds of steals from Fear Itself, okay, where he picks up Milner, right? And in the free comic book day issue of that, he picks it up, and he's like, everybody's freaking out. They're like, how can he do this? He's a Hydra agent. And a lot of the superheroes are like, if Captain America is Hydra and he's worthy, maybe this is just the route we're having to go down now. So you get these factions of superheroes who are basically isolated, like they are killing off these superheroes. And then you got some of the heroes who are now following Cap's team in Hydra, and they kind of go at it, and they do certain things and stuff that are out of character for them. But they're like, well, I mean, if Cap's worthy, then this is the way we go down. And it really sets the tone. I feel like this series here sets the tone for this, the events and the storylines we have now. You know, you get Miles Morales, Spider-Man, who has to make some big decisions and stuff. You get some things that happen with Black Widow that kind of takes her out of the fold for a little bit, and then in Secret what is it? Secret War? No, yeah, Secret Wars. She kind of comes back with some other powers, and you're not quite sure how that happens. But this was one of my favorite storylines. A lot of people didn't like it, but it really fits well into Marvel continuity, getting them forward in their storylines.
Mhm.
Did you ever have a chance to read this book?
It's again one of the things that's on my list
Mhm.
because I've heard about it, and I remember being on Comic Vine when the whole Hail Hydra thing came out. So I kind of
Mhm.
looked at it from an outside perspective, reading like synopsises and stuff like that. But I really want to dig into it because the art looks really good, the story sounds really good.
Yeah. Awesome. So now we're actually going to go into a segment that we did last week, or not last week, but we did it on the last show, called Name That Comic. So Dan Lee commented on our last show on Name That Comic, and he called it out perfectly. It's Brute Force #1, and basically this book is about some cybernetic animals. They were doing experiments on them, and it's a 4-issue miniseries. Really, really random book, but it's just so abstract that I had to have it. You got this cybernetic dolphin that's running with a pistol, and you got this kangaroo that's on some kind of like hopping vehicle and stuff like that. It's one of those books that's just really pulled out of nowhere. And that was the last show's Name That Comic. So this week for Name That Comic, we have this book right here. And for those of us, or for those of you who are just listening to this, please consider watching the video and checking out which book this is. So you got Storm, you got Drax, and you got Rocket. And I'll give you a little hint. And with this hint, I'm going to challenge you with something else. We talked about this book sometime during this show. But now that I gave you this hint, I want you to tell me the issue number and what book it is. What book you think it is.
Zach, I would, or sorry, I'm so sorry, Sean. I just called you Zach. Oh
That's
no,
our fearless leader.
our fearless Zach. I was going to see. I think that if we have like a running person every week that submits first or is right first, we should see if we can get them maybe like some free stickers or something, or some sort of prize down the line, depending on viewer participation. But I think that would be fun. What the Zach about it? That's where that Zach came from.
Yeah, that's definitely a Zach question. But hopefully that's where we're heading with this. But it's kind of a fun thing, just trying to identify some of these books. Again, if you think you know the issue number and the book title of this particular book, type it down in the comments below and let us know what you think. Also, I want to know, what is your opinion on variants? Do you buy them? Do you not buy them? Why? What is your reasoning for buying variants? I want to see what you guys have to think about that. And again, put it down in the comments below. And at this time, we would like to thank all of our Patreons for helping support this channel and support collecting comics and collecting weekly and all of our shows that are on our network. So let's go ahead and give these guys a shout out. We'd like to thank Ben Porter,
Griffin Campbell,
Sean Fear,
Ian Saby,
Renee Mendez,
Eric. Oh man, I'm gonna butcher this last name. Marisol. Marisol is. I'm so sorry. I'll work on it. I promise.
Quinn Aguilar, I guess maybe. Sorry guys, I'm not good at this either.
Oh man, Jenny Lee,
Deanie Martin,
Stephen Kurt,
Jason Nelson,
Big Fern,
King Zachary V,
Caesar Marquin,
Eric Ruiz,
Mario Cortez,
Stephen Percha,
Sean Busey?
Scott Bradley. Sorry. Scott
Oh, you're
Bradley.
fine. Oh no. And
Jesse Contreras. I'll help you out on that one.
Oh man.
Yeah, we're really gonna have to talk to Zach about this. But we want to thank all of our Patreons for helping support the channels and Collecting Weekly Network, and we really appreciate you guys for taking the time to listen to our content, and we really appreciate you guys joining us.
Yes, we do. I'm so sorry for the names that we butchered. We do love you, though. If you want to be certified crispy, you can sign up. We have a couple different donor levels. I could talk about the first one if you want, Sean.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, let's talk about the sticker, the certified crispy, the August giveaway.
So, I love the bacon. It looks great.
I thought that was awesome. But like Cody said, if you would like to become a Patreon, here's what you have to do, Cody.
Yes. So you can go to our Patreon website, which is patreon.com/join collecting weekly. Our first level is our $5 level. It's called the Sweet Angel. You get some Patreon swag sent straight to your door for the $5 a month sticker. For $5 a month, you get a sticker for each month. We have a bunch of them. So hopefully, if you sign up, you'll get some cool stickers. Put them on your water bottle, your computer, whatever you want.
And the crispy tier is also pretty cool. You actually get Zach's help on for fixing a figure. I thought that was pretty cool of him.
Yes, you get the what is it? The free painted head sculpt from Dark Side Customs as well. You get everything in the first tier, I believe, as well. So become crispy.
And of course, we'd like to shout out all of our other shows on the network. Collecting Weekly and After Dark are our weekly shows. So check those out. I think Collecting Weekly's Tuesday or Wednesday.
I honestly don't know off the top of my head.
Sorry, Zach and Dean. But
I can talk about Live and Let Dice if you want.
Yeah. Go ahead. Live and Let Dice, Collecting Rarities, and Creeps Are Us are our monthly shows.
Live and Let Dice. I'm the Dungeon Master, Cody. I will be guiding you through stories of our players with Dean, Deanie, Zach, and our friend Devin. We are hoping to go bi-monthly with the show, but some more news on that probably in the next month or so.
And then we have Small Talk, Only Fools in Collecting, and Collecting Comics, of course, are our bi-weekly shows. So be sure, if you ever get the chance, to check out some of these other stuff. I always kind of like to watch The Joy of Hobbying with Zach too, though, when he's kind of taking his time working on some kind of custom or a model kit, or he's reviewing a figure or something like that. You could really tell how much he enjoys doing all this. Before we go, since we got Cody here now, I want to know what you guys want to talk about, what you guys want to hear us talk about. If you have any interests in comics, some topics that we might have hit on that you want more details in, put it in the comment section, or send us a Facebook message on what you guys like to hear. And that's our show today. My name's Sean.
My name's Cody.
And this is Collecting Comics.
Have a good night.